didn't sound too bad when I played that back, so this is the second part of Scroll 9. They've just obviously found out that the boy's name is Lupus, for wolf. After another hour of questioning, with much nodding and shaking of Lupus's head, they had discovered several facts about him. Lupus was an orphan. He had no family. He had no home. He spent much of his day searching in the rubbish tips behind the tombs. The junk man occasionally gave him small coins for what he found. With those coins, together with any he received from begging, he bought a small amount of food. During the summer, when the nights were warm, he slept outside, often among the tombs. In the winter, when it was cold or damp, he slept beside the furnace of the baths of Thetis. That would be warmed baths that would be dedicated to the goddess or nymph Thetis. He thought he was about 8 years old, but he didn't know for certain. None of them dared to ask how he had lost his tongue. Throughout their exchange, Mordecai had been sitting quietly in a shadowy corner, watching and listening. They had almost forgotten his presence, and when he stood up and came into the circle of lamplight, Flavia jumped. "Children, it is well past sundown," he gently reminded them, "and time for you all to go to bed. Flavia, you and Nubia should go home now, or your nurse will worry. Lupus, you are welcome to spend the night here. Would you like that?" Lupus considered this proposal for a moment and then nodded. "Good," smiled Mordecai. He pinched out all but one of the wicks on the lampstand and left the room. Jonathan and Nubia said goodnight to Lupus and went out. Flavia trailed behind on purpose, and as she reached the door, she turned and whispered to the boy, "Lupus, Jonathan's dog was beheaded this morning. We are trying to find out who killed it. Will you help us solve the mystery?" Lupus's green eyes glinted in the dim lamplight, and she saw him nod. "See you in the morning, then," said Flavia. "We're just finishing our breakfast," said Jonathan the next morning as he led Flavia and Nubia through the atrium and corridor towards the garden. "Miriam's still at my cousin's house, and Father went to the forum early to report the crime to the magistrates, and also to tell them about the pack of wild dogs. He says soldiers will probably deal with them. Father told us not to go anywhere until he comes back," Jonathan added as they stepped into the garden. It was only an hour after dawn, and the garden was still in shadow, though the sky above was clear blue. Lupus was sitting cross-legged on a faded red and blue carpet spread on the garden path. Although the low table before him was loaded with food, he wasn't eating. He was sipping a thick, creamy liquid from a clay beaker. "It's buttermilk," explained Jonathan. "He had some bread and honey, but this is easier for him to eat." "Good morning, Lupus," said Flavia. "Are you feeling better this morning?" The mute boy greeted Flavia and Nubia with a half smile and nodded. Jonathan and the girls sat around the table on the carpet. Flavia pulled a wax tablet and stylus from her belt. "Let's make a plan for today. Jonathan, have you told Lupus everything?" "Yes," nodded Jonathan. "Everything I could remember. How we all went to the harbour with you, leaving Bobus here alone, and how we found him when we got back." His voice caught, and Flavia asked quickly, "How do you think the killer got in?" "Father rarely locks the door," Jonathan admitted. "We have no door slave, and in our old community no one ever locked their doors." He paused and added softly, "We'll never make that mistake again." "Who lives on the other side of this house, Jonathan?" "A banker and his family, I think. But they shut it up last week and went to Herculaneum for the summer." Flavia made a few notes on her wax tablet. When it says a wax tablet, we're not quite looking at the same sort of tablet as you might have at home, but it would be something of the shape of an electronic tablet with a wax surface to it, and she would use a bladed item called a stylus that would carve in to write the words in Latin. So she's making notes in that way. Flavia made a few notes on her wax tablet. No one heard anything. No one saw anything, apart from Lupus, and nothing was stolen. "The dice!" cried Jonathan. "I forgot about the dice." He fished in the pouch tied to his belt and showed Lupus the quartz dice. Lupus blew on it, rolled it on the carpet, and scowled as it came up 1. Blowing on the dice would be a way of giving them good luck before you throw them. Bit of superstitious nonsense. "The dog throw," observed Flavia absently, and then, "Wait, when you throw a 1, it's called the dog throw. It's the worst score. Do you think it means something?" Jonathan shrugged, and Lupus scratched his head. "Probably not." Flavia chewed the end of her stylus. "I think the killer was the man crying beside the tomb," she said finally. "He hates dogs, and he fits Lupus's description. Did you tell Lupus what the man looked like?" Jonathan started to reply, but suddenly Lupus grabbed Flavia's wax tablet and stylus and rubbed out her notes with his thumb, so the wax would be soft enough that you could erase it just by rubbing on it. "Hey!" said Flavia in protest. Lupus ignored her and began to make a few quick marks on the tablet. He grinned with delight as the tip of the ivory stylus pushed back the soft beeswax to reveal blackened wood underneath. Flavia was about to snatch it back when she saw that he was drawing something. After a moment, the boy held it up for them to see. With confident black lines etched in the yellow wax, Lupus had drawn a man. The portrait was simple but clear. A square face, clean-shaven, short hair brushed forward, and heavy eyebrows that met above his nose. "That's him!" exclaimed Flavia with a squeal of excitement. "That's the man we saw at the tomb."